We're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet So Hail, where we talk about Star Trek casually and informally. And today we're talking about season 3 of Strange New Worlds, episode 7. What is Starfleet? And some might be wondering, what was this episode? But that's what we're here to break down. Braxton, it's so lovely to have you again. Thank you for joining me tonight on this Star Trek evening. And I think I'll do a quick episode summary and then we'll just hop right in because I know you're dying to talk about it. I'm also dying to talk about it too. Basically, if you're a Battlestar Galactica fan, this is just like the episode
Dude,
Final Cut. Oh, what happened? You can't hear me? Oh, I'm on a delay. Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. I'm gonna pause it.
Dude,
Okay, that was the first time I ever paused the recording. So we're back. I think we have at least solved the technical issue for now. Braxton, welcome back.
Thank you, Sohail. It's nice to see you and to have watched an episode of Trek with you.
Thank you. So what I was saying is, for my little summary, is that this episode was almost exactly, not exactly, I would say, it's been so many years since I've seen it, but it reminded me of an episode of Battlestar Galactica season 2 called Final Cut, in which there's also a character who's making a documentary, and it kind of has the same vibe where the documentary starts off kind of like, a kind of showing the darker side or the bad side of being, the military, and then it by the end I think it has that same kind of like uplifting feeling of like, oh, this is actually, there's two sides to the coin, if you will. So that part of the episode was kind of like, oh, okay, are they directly homaging it or are they ripping it or what? What's going on here? Plus, I don't know about you, but Beto just annoys the hell out of me. I like him, but he annoys. He is like a little brother. Yeah, he acts like a little brother. He's definitely like really annoying. I can see why Ortegas is annoyed by him as well. But the whole story about in this episode, there's a whole story about this kind of space whale, or a moth, I should say. It looks like Mothra from the Godzilla movies. This like creature called the what was it called?
With a J, like a
Yeah,
Junta, like
the Jakaru, the Jakaru.
Jakaro, yes, Jakaro.
I loved everything about that, and the Jakaru to me was like a very emotional part of the episode, and that's what really like touched me, was the story of the Jakaru. So apparently these people, there's these two kind of factions, the Lutani and the Kassar, that have been warring. They've been fighting with each other. The Lutani have lost 9 million. They've had 9 million casualties on their side of the war, and the Kassar have only had like 100,000 casualties. So they've kind of developed this weapon by manipulating this Jakar and changing its brain chemistry to make it aggressive and angry, and like basically turning it into a weapon. They call it a metamorphosis project. They've also somehow given it the ability to be a spacefaring creature. And I guess they were going to use it as like, well, like the ultimate biological weapon, right? So they were going to take it and to even the odds in this battle. And the Federation or Starfleet had agreed to kind of help this cause. And during the episode, we see that like the crew don't really know what's going on completely, and they're like good soldiers. They're following orders, and so Beto's kind of presenting that side of it, which we've seen before a lot of times in Star Trek, but it was interesting to see it from this version, this like filmed version or whatever. And then by the end, so at first they're trying to contain the creature and control it, but it's another scientist kind of comes and attacks the Jakaru because they realize, oh, maybe this was a mistake, we shouldn't have done this, and damages a device that was kind of like, the way Chapel describes it, is a like a shock collar, basically, like that, like if the Jakaru doesn't behave, they shock they shock it into behaving, basically, or following what they wanted to do. all kinds of cruelties that, we humans would find appalling. Like, imagine if you did that to a whale or something like that. It'd be crazy. Um, so Uhura and Spock come up with a solution, along with Chapel, which is to try to communicate with it. And when they finally do make contact, they find out that the Jakaru's like just kind of devastated and destroyed emotionally, and feels like, uh, its life is like its true purpose is like gone, and so she's scared that the Lutani are going to do the same thing to her kids, and she doesn't want to be a thing of like a weapon, so she asks that they use her aggressive tendencies to get get her to follow the Enterprise, and then she goes into the sun and destroys herself, and I just started weeping like a little baby during that part. I don't know about you, but I was very emotionally struck by it, and so, yeah, that's, that's what happens, and at the end, Beto realizes after Uhura gives him a little, dose of, reality that, that he actually was so aggressive, um, because of, uh, the way he was coming across, with his documentary was, kind of aggressive and everything because he really feels resentment to Starfleet because his sister almost died, and so once he faces those emotions, he kinda lets that go, and then, we get to see a different perspective, from there. Are you putting your headphones on? Because I keep hearing an echo, so that would be great if you if you could connect your headphones. I don't know if you're able to. If not, that's fine. We'll figure it out. I think
Oh
there's a
no,
sound.
I
Oh, cool.
can't.
Yay. So, yeah, that's my episode summary. I don't think it was too long.
And so I think that
Hello.
your episode
Oh,
summary
yay.
was I think your episode summary was perfect. I'm sorry that you were hearing the echo. Is it gone now?
That's okay. It's totally gone now. That's great. And you
Okay,
sound better too.
good. You know,
So what'd you think of this episode, Braxton?
so I think that I didn't like a lot of things about this episode, but at the same time, I think that it was interesting. Um, I feel like there's been other episodes of Star Trek where it's kind of been like a study of like or a perspective on like what Star Trek is. Like at first, like when it started out, I was like, oh, is this like one of those episodes where it's like, Star Trek is like a Starfleet is totally the bad guys. But then, as it went on, I did think that some of the shots were really interesting. They were going like back and forth between like bridge cameras and like corridor cameras and like wherever the cameras were. I thought that was interesting. Um I kind of hate you know suicide. I was not okay with them encouraging that creature to kill themselves. Even I mean, like she had kids. Like, what about the
I
kids?
know, but the thing is
Like,
that I think they mentioned this one line that got me was that there was no way to Dr. Mega says there's no way to reverse the damage that had been done to her brain by there was nothing they could do. It's like, imagine, like, you have a puppy, right? And you raise it to just be so aggressive and awful and just like mean, and like, which happens sometimes, by the way. And there's nothing you can do. The dog, when it's a grown, when it's grown up, there's no way to like bring it back to its regular state, which is probably like, just kind and peaceful and nice. So the Jakaru itself didn't see an option. And yeah, I hear what you're saying, because I don't like ending of life either in that way. But this was a no-win scenario. This is like a
mm,
no-win scenario, I feel like, you know what
the
I mean?
Jakar was
Yeah, that was
beautiful. Like,
yeah,
when it emerged
yeah.
from the planet, like, I mean, it doesn't look like it, but it reminded me of like how beautiful I thought the crystalline entity was. You know,
Oh,
I just thought
nice,
it was
nice.
so beautiful as it like emerged from the planet. You know, it was like,
And it was an example of that kind of life form. It was like gigantic, like there's in Star Trek you get every now and then you get like these like epic space life forms, life forms that are like out in outer space, and the crystalline entity was a great example. That was so sad. Remember what that lady did to the crystalline entity?
yeah, they murdered the crystalline entity. It
I
was
know.
terrible. And Star Trek, and so you know, and so also, so I cringed when Captain Pike was like, "Oh, you know what happens? Like, if you were to mess with us, like you mess with like all of us, like Starfleet's gonna come for you." I was like, "Oh gosh!" And then like Uhura, like ended the show, she was like, "Oh, Starfleet, like like the ideals that we're about." And then like the last shot was the sun, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like Starfleet supports like people like killing themselves." Like I don't know, I I don't know. I
I think
thought
it's
that.
I don't think Starfleet has like a policy that supports that, but I think it's case by case, just like life is. You know what I mean? Like you would. Let me ask you a question. Like, let's just say, let's just say, like, I had this like terrible like condition that would just cause me like so much pain that I couldn't function anymore as a human being, and I said, Braxton, I need you to help me by pointing me into the sun and letting me go. Would you be like, no, you need to keep suffering with your pain? Or would you be like, okay, Sohail, I love you and I'm going to let you go? Which would you do?
I
Oh my
would encourage I would
God.
encourage you to fight through it. I really would. Um,
Okay.
but then
And then let's just say like 10 years go by and I'm like suffering, 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 and like there's no end to my pain. Then
but
I
then the
ask you again, like, can you point me into the sun, Braxton?
but at
Like,
the
let
same
me.
time, like my perspective is that, like I'm a human person, so like our lives are short. So like
Yeah,
I
it's true.
always want to preserve our lives
That's a good
because I
point.
think, well, like our problems are most times only temporary. And you know what? Like, don't kill yourself. Like, you know what? Your life is gonna be over before you know it, even if it's a long life. Like, fight on is
This
always
takes
my
an
perspective.
I love this because this takes an interesting perspective that I hadn't thought about when I was watching the episode, which is, the big debate in real life about, assisted suicide, which is something that exists, in our world. And like my perspective is like, when a person is in so much pain that they can't have a life, like they can, and it's for sure. But then Star Trek also shows us that sometimes you never know what can happen because Dr. McCoy took his father off of life support in Star Trek 5, and then like I think he says like 2 weeks later they found a cure for the father's condition. So I could see your
Yeah.
side of it too, because it's like if Dr. McCoy had just waited 2 more weeks and not, but then again, his father was begging him to let it. That's such a
I mean, dude,
it's
like
really good, it's like it's
maybe
really
they
good.
could have brought some like beta zoids in to like do some therapy or something with the device that Spock was using. Like maybe they could have brought in like some more powerful telepath telepaths who could like do some therapy on them. I feel like,
Oh my
they
gosh,
shouldn't have like
would Loxana, Troy's family, that would have been a neat way to bring like the Troys in somehow, like that would have been an interesting. That's a great idea. See, they should have cut all that Beto garbage out and done that. That's a much better story. I like that a lot. But
so now do you think that
I'm not trying to
Uhura
criticize what it could have been. We should like talk about what it is, So yeah. But go on, sorry.
mm, mhm. so now so so what do you think about Uhura and Beto now?
I
Now
hope
that
she's
like
over him. I hope that end scene where she was like, "Listen, child," basically, like this is you put me through all these emotions and you were filming me and interrogating me and making me question. He even he's like bad. He brought up her friend and he knew that she was her roommate in
mm,
the academy and that she died on the Cayuga, and he wanted to get her reaction on film. That's not something you film
mhm, mhm.
someone, you know what I mean? So I don't like
You're
Beto.
like,
I think
"Oh, did you know
he's
your friend
exploited
died?"
it. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's so exploitative. And then the other thing, which I thought was interesting though, was that, people have been complaining that Strange New Worlds doesn't really like take punches anymore, that it plays it a little too safe. But I thought it was very brave for Strange New World to create an almost a, I wouldn't say exact, but like referencing the conflict in Israel and Palestine, with the
Mhm.
numbers. For example, the
Mhm.
with just some of the situation, I should say, the Lutani have lost 9 million. It's a disproportionate amount to the Kassar in their battle. We don't know the details of their battle, but we know from Ortega's that the Lutani, the people that created this weapon, have been known to side with the Klingons and raid Federation ships. And so why are we siding with the Lutani now? Like this whole thing. And then we never
Mhm.
really get to meet the Kassar. But then at one point, Beto, he's analogizing, he's saying, is the Federation an empire? Or, what's the difference between an empire and a federation? And, what's the difference between a starship and a warship? And all these things. And he even goes so far as to like refer to the Federation as colonizers, which is a term that we're seeing, used a lot with the Palestine and Israeli conflict and other conflicts around the world. Whereas once the United States, especially, was viewed as a kind of a good force, like what we think, the positive things we think about the Federation and Starfleet were once things that were very much associated with the United States and the United States Armed Forces. And now it seems like the world is kind of, many people in the world are kind of like Beto, where they're questioning, what is the United States really? And I've heard it, referred to as an empire, and I've heard it referred to as, the military being, you know, a colonization tool and things like that, and that we're colonizers. Like you hear this going around, and it really, as an American, it does kind of hurt my feelings because I don't believe that that's the case. I think that, like the end of this episode, what really makes the United States is not necessarily, while we do have policies that are sometimes bad, the people, the heart of the people, I don't believe that that's what we are as a people. I don't believe that the people serving in the armed forces, want to create trouble and destruction. They truly genuinely want to be a peacekeeping force. So it's a tough time for the United States and other, countries. And so I think it's something that um, that Strange New Worlds finally addressed it. What do you like? Kind of address contemporary things. What do you think?
Mhm. So, that's interesting. Like you talk about, ordinary people having jobs and doing what they're told. Like that's what, the crew was talking about like tonight, talking about not liking some aspects of the mission, but simply doing what they're told. I think that like a lot of times like the ordinary citizens who have jobs, who are executing the policies of powerful men and women, they don't have bad intentions, but like the people who are holding the levers of power do have bad intentions, and then people end up doing what they're told, and really bad things end up happening. Um, so it was interesting, like you were just talking about, just like following
Yeah,
orders. Yeah.
I think Starfleet and the Federation are an analog, like kind of they are a version of the United States and the United States Armed Forces in a way. I don't like Starfleet being but I've never liked the people are always like, oh, well, it has ranks and stuff like that. And, and they've changed the language to call it a peacekeeping force and a peacekeeping armada recently in the Kelvin films and also in Star Trek. So I guess Star Trek is kind of admitting that Starfleet is a military branch, but I've always thought of it as fully exploratory with defensive capabilities. And that's what I think Uhura's and the rest of them are trying to convince Beto of, is that like we are not a military. We're not that. It's
Dude,
different in the United. It's different.
Spock was talking about like when violence was like necessary. Like it was acceptable. Like he was talking about like what Star Trek. I mean, what Starfleet meant to him, and he was talking about, oh, if he had remained on Vulcan, that he did he say that he would have been shot or banished. I was like, is that true? I feel like the Vulcans are more advanced than that. I mean, they're gonna
I
like
think what he
execute people or like or
no, I
banish
don't think
them.
that no, I don't think that's correct. I think you I don't remember it being like that. What I do remember though is that when he was a boy, he was rejected by a friend and he started cutting himself. So that's a new thing for Spock that we hadn't heard about before. That's like a new thing about him. But what he was saying at the end, I think, is that on Vulcan, he would not be encouraged to explore his human side. And that's what Starfleet has given him is the chance, to explore who he really is by exploring emotions sometimes, or sometimes, like he's kind of finding himself. As we know, Spock will eventually go further into the path of Kolinar, but then he doesn't finish it in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. So the end result of Spock is just that he decides, or he becomes comfortable, I think, that he's a child of two worlds and that he's, like he is what he is. Like sometimes he's emotional and sometimes he's not. It's just how he is. La'an was surprising to me though with her, but again, I think Beto just took everything out of I think that was Beto editing things and it made it sound more aggressive than there's probably stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor that balances it out. But Leon was like, "Oh, sometimes we strike first," and I don't know if that's true. Like, like I could see it in certain situations. By the way, the firing range was really cool where she was like shooting at all those targets and stuff like that. I thought that was neat and stuff like that. But yeah, so I don't think Spock would have been punished in that way, but he would have been definitely, I think he definitely, Vulcans can be very like, from what I've seen on Star Trek, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can be very judgy. And so he's sensitive, that could have gotten to him. But I don't remember the thing about him that he would have been executed or anything like that
Dude,
on.
I would have sworn that he said if he had remained on Vulcan that he would have been shot or banished. I would have sworn it.
Okay,
Like
maybe
we'll
banished.
have to watch it again. Like it's all the way at the
You said
end, like when they're talking
like banished. Yeah, maybe he would have been
banished.
banished. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe. Because if
But I
he
didn't think
oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. No, no, sorry. So if he did start to show emotions, yes, he would have been 100% banished. You're right. Like if he had gone too far outside of the Vulcan norm. But they would be
outside of
like,
the Vulcan norm, he would
yeah,
be banished. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
you're right. You're right. But he would have been banished in the most polite way possible.
I feel like it would be humane.
It would be like, you can live on Earth.
Mhm.
Like that's what it would. It's like, Spock, you can live on Earth. And that's how it would be, I think.
Did you like seeing Beto's flying camera that was kind of like floating in between people as they walked down the hallway and then like going from like person to person? I thought that was like interesting.
I think it's like cool technology and everything, but I just don't like. I think I feel like Captain Pike, where it's like, get that thing away, get him off the bridge. I love that part when he was like non-essential people off the bridge. I'm just like so annoyed with Beto. I don't know. I don't like him being, but I think he figures it out. Like I just didn't like his approach. Is I guess the way I would have if Beto was like, if I was on the ship and they were doing that documentary and I saw how he was behaving, I would have been like, please don't interview and don't you dare. You do not have permission to have my likeness anywhere on your film. I would be like, forget about it. What did you think of like the the kind of, I guess, the whole landscape of what was going on in general, like, just everything, like, did you I guess I'll just say one of my critiques is like, I thought that the film part of it, like the documentary part of it, took away from like a good story about the Jakaru and the two warring factions. I think they should have played it as a straight episode, and the documentary might have been like a little less. of the documentary and a lot more of the Jakaru and the other story.
hmm so I totally agree. About 80% of the way through the show, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was like, oh, I wish that they had, told us like a more traditional Star Trek story, like it told us like about the Warren faction and more like, about the animal and like gave us more traditional shots. I think that the episode may have been more compelling to me. I think the same thing.
Mhm. So we're in agreement about that. What do you think, I guess going back to earlier topic, what do you think, Federation, like, how do you think what do you think of how Beto was portraying the Federation? Which is correct, like, how he was portraying it, where it's kind of, like, shady, or more or do you think, like, more what Uhura was trying to say?
hmm so I don't think of Star Trek as being shady. I don't think that
You
they're
mean, like,
terrible.
Starfleet, you mean, like,
Oh,
or
oh, I'm
the
sorry, I said
Federation,
Star
yeah.
Trek.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
yeah. I don't think that. I
world.
don't think that the Federation is terribly shady. I mean, I think that sometimes they make really hard choices. I mean, I feel like is Section 31 around right now? No, Section 31's like
No,
later in the
they're
future.
around.
hmm
They're just, like,
Clandestine.
clandestine. They're still around,
hmm
yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
definitely still there in the fabric of it
look,
all,
the
yeah.
the Section 31 people are like probably doing the bad stuff, but I feel like, like
Section
is it
31
Admiral
might have
April?
been behind what transformed the Jakaru into this, like, terribly tortured, weapon of mass destruction. That
Hey,
might have
you
been a
never
Section
know.
30 that might have been a
Mhm.
Section 31
But
thing.
I I feel like is it Ambassador April? No, he's not Ambassador. Admiral
Admiral,
April. I feel like
yeah.
Admiral
He does
April,
become an ambassador later, though, you're right. I'm pretty
like
sure.
I feel like he is like generally making good moral decisions.
I think so too. I think Una says it best, when she says a couple things that I wrote down. One was that, um, where was it? Uh, the job that's the job. Sometimes the cost we pay comes due. Like, so it's like sometimes you have to make these tough decisions. They don't always, favor the ideals of the Federation. And so there's a price to pay at the end. And then the other thing that she said was like, our job is to bring light, life, and warmth to the universe, which, some people say is a very cold kind of place, lifeless place. So I think like that. And then Uhura's, statement about, when he's like talking about like, why is it always the Federation that does these things? And she's like, because no one else has our resources. And if not us, then who? And I like that. I think that's true. Like when you have a lot of, to copy from another franchise, when you have a lot of power, you also have a great responsibility. So,
Absolutely.
you know, so that's just how it is. So I like, yeah, I think those statements kind of sum up what I think of the Federation and Starfleet as, and what I hope, if it's not right now, what I hope the United States will be broadly. You know what I mean? And not just, I think Earth, long term thinking, Earthlings, you know, remember after the burn, the Earthlings were very like they were assholes. Remember? Do you remember in Discovery, like when they went back to Earth, they were like expecting it to be like a utopia, and everyone's like gonna receive them with open arms, and instead they're like, "What are you doing here?" Like Earth is closed. Like get out of here. So Star Trek. I love Star Trek because it does really make you think about things, and like it makes you realize that things don't have to be always, things can change. Also perspectives, different perspectives on things. Like it's a very powerful vehicle. And I think that's one thing that this episode in the end does really well, is convey that there's more to it than just one interpretation.
Hmm. So, do you know? Did like the did anyone from Starfleet think anything about them allowing the alien to kill itself?
I think that was like uh in a line Captain Pike uh talks to says something along the lines of like Starfleet doesn't like it, but they understand why we're making the decision because Starfleet was trying to fulfill their commitment to the Lutani of transporting this creature to one of their planets. I guess that they were gonna, stage, they were gonna like where there's a big battle or something like that. But you know what else is, the Lutani are kind of stupid in my opinion because they're so desperate that they like created this like basic like this program, this metamorphosis program where they're like, they call it metamorphosis, but it's really a distorting, like they're distorting this poor creature. It's like imagine if like you remember how like there were like um there are rumors that like the the Navy uses dolphins for like they were gonna like I think actually this might have been something they proposed, but they were gonna put like torpedoes on dolphins or something like that and like use them in battle and stuff like that. That's what it reminds me of. It's such a bad idea, but the Lutani went ahead and did it, which is crazy. Have we ever used like animals in this fashion? Maybe back in the day, like I think elephants may have been used in war, and to like destroy things and stuff like that. But fortunately, humans have realized that that's like just wrong, and so yeah, I think the Lutani are again, we don't really know them very well. We met that one scientist that was dying, and she even says like, "Oh, we made a mistake. Like, don't let this happen. Don't let the don't let the Jakaru be used as a weapon." So even that one scientist realized that it was a mistake. So I thought like yeah, the landscape of this episode was very powerful.
Mhm.
It's a tough one because I agree with what what we were talking about earlier about like maybe it should have been played more traditional, like, and less of this kind of edgy documentary style. Speaking of that, I also thought that the documentary type style that they were using was like a distracting style, like the mix between the flight recorder footage and the footage that he was taking and stuff like that. It just didn't seem it just seems overplayed. Like again, referencing that Battlestar Galactica. Did you watch Battlestar Galactica by the way?
No,
Oh, we should watch that episode so you can see what I'm talking about. And I haven't seen it in years too, so I want to see if I'm correct on that. Um, but there were some really beautiful moments. Like when that one scene at the end, I know you don't like to talk about it because it involves the creature, ending its life, but that one scene at the end when everyone's in the observation lounge and they show a wide shot and then you could see it like flying past the ship. That was really pretty, I thought. And no, there was just a lot of moments in the episode that were very moving. I had some more questions. What was it?
war is really tough. I was
Dr.
watching a video.
Mbengo was sorry, go ahead. You were watching
Oh
a
no,
video?
no, I was watching a video on various wars that have been waged on the Indo-Chinese on the Indochina Peninsula, like the Vietnam War, several wars between Burma and Thailand. Um, like war is just so tough. I mean, you talk
It's
about like
the
millions
worst.
of people like dying in wars, like oh my gosh, you know, like um, you know, a article that I was reading said that possibly up to 3 million Vietnamese people had been killed in the
Wow.
Vietnam War, and then like 300,000 Cambodians, 200,000 people from Laos. Just like people just getting caught up in just a terrible war.
That is terrible. And when you realize some of the things behind it, like how much money weapons manufacturers make off of it and what, the military industrial complex and those kinds of concepts, then you get even more angry and sad and bitter, when you think about it. I think I was mentioning Dr. Mbenga because when you said war's tough, I thought about how much that poor man has seen. And at the end, remember, he says so much loss, like when the Jakaru dies, he's like so affected by it. Like he's just like devastated, and I'm like, gosh. And that was the other thing. It's like he was trying to interrogate Dr. Mbenga, you know, as a character drama, it was like interesting to see these like characterizations of like these people that we have come to know, and like characterizations that make us go like, hey, that's not who that person is. So I guess in that way maybe there's like a positive where it reinforces that we know these characters really well, you know what I mean? Like, and Beto doesn't really know them very well, and so he's just like seeing the surface. He's like seeing their records or their logs or the surface level. He's not digging deep, until the very end. But yeah,
Now, Dr.
that
Mbanga stuff was classified. Like, do you think that Dr. Mbanga has killed more than 50 people?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Remember that episode? He was the actual butcher of Jagal. Like, I think he was at one point. I think he's special forces. And like, like his skills. He's got some skills, but he doesn't like it. He doesn't like that side of him, as we saw in that other episode earlier this season. He thinks of himself as a monster, which, we know he's definitely not. Um, but yeah, so let's see. Was there anything else we're missing from this episode? I think we covered. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about?
Um, we talked about the character study.
We
Um,
talked about the
uh,
Jakaru. We talked about like Uhura. Oh, I had a note about Uhura's eyeshadow was fabulous. Like, did you notice it at all?
dude, I feel like Yehora's looking good. Like these past couple of episodes, like
She
I'm loving
does.
like the
She
things with
looks.
her hair. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
makeup is cute. Like she had like the little like cornrows today. I thought that was
yeah.
cute.
But she
Like
had
I
like
feel
this
like her and
really
Lon kind
cool.
of had like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, yeah. But the eyeshadow, if you when you watch it again, just pay attention to the eyeshadow because it's like like I don't wear makeup, but if I did, I would want eyeshadow. I would want
Oh
eyeshadow like
wow.
that. It's like, yeah,
Oh wow. Oh wow. Like I
yeah.
mean, so like when to look for it? Like, is it while she's wearing the cornrows? Is it like when she's like
She's
kind of like dressed in the
it's.
striped top, like at the end?
I think it's at the very end when the Jakaru dies, she closes her eyes, and that's when I noticed it.
Mm,
Maybe
mm.
after this recording, I'll rewind. I'll put that part on again so you can see what I'm talking
Now,
about.
I feel like I had not yet seen the device that Spock was using to communicate with the Chikaro.
Oh
Had you
yeah,
seen that device before?
I think we've seen things like it, but not in Stranger Worlds. Maybe not that I recall.
It's
But
like
it was neat. Like
amplifying like
it amplifies
brain
his psych
waves and like
waves. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's something we. Thank you for bringing that up because that's something I want to talk about. I forgot. I didn't even write this down, but you just reminded me. When Uhura is communicating with the Jakaru, I thought that was such a good performance by Celia Rose Gooding, and we got to hear her. She was communicating through like song almost, like she was like singing, and I thought that was so beautiful because Uhura is known to be a singer. Like in the original series, she sings, and of course in Star Trek Five and stuff like that. But the other thing that I thought that was really great, and that I'm so glad we didn't skip this because one thing that I really, really loved was the Jakaru is a seafaring creature. And when it's in space, it sounds different than when it would sound like underwater. And I couldn't help but thinking of Star Trek 4 when Uhura takes the probe, remember the whale probe sounds, and then puts it underwater. And that's how they realize, oh, it's the song of a humpback whale, right? And so I thought that was such a great thing that reinforces like what a badass she is with communication because she learned from this episode how to communicate with this creature that was, like it reminded me a lot of the space probe, like the whale probe, because it was like on that level of, something. So in the end, it just I love when Star Trek makes like connections that are not like, hit you over the head type of things. And I thought that was a really nice reference to Star Trek 4 and Uhura's skills and everything like that. So yeah, I loved it. She's just badish. I love Uhura. She's great. And I'm glad the character never got her, like we never dove deep into the character in the original series, and like you get to know her through Nichelle Nichols and stuff like that, but you never get it on screen really. And finally we're getting it on screen, which is great.
Yeah, it is great that she's being fleshed out more. I have been, enjoying like her storylines, and especially like some of her fashion and like her hair.
Yeah. Her hair, her eye makeup, everything. I
Hmm.
might actually for Halloween have to imitate, like to try this eye makeup, because I was just so enthralled by
Mhm.
her eye
I
makeup. It was
also
really
feel
good.
like there's been like a lot of cleavage. Like when there has been like an opportunity like for Uhura to have cleavage, like I feel like she's got it popping out. Like when they were at the wedding, like I feel like I was seeing lots of like cleavage. Like like the Spock Chapel wedding, when she had like the uh God, when she had the Bantu knots.
Oh, yeah,
Also,
yeah.
like when she was playing like the woman in California, like she was like walking through like the house, and she was like talking about things, and like she had a lot of cleavage
Wow.
showing.
I didn't even notice. I think I didn't even notice the cleavage. I have to go and pay
Oh,
attention.
that was the
In
cleavage there.
in Uhura's quarters, those like headdress things? What were do we know anything about those? Like, I wonder what those are, if they're gonna make, because they focused on them, but I don't know what those are.
Oh, I didn't catch them. I wonder if they're just something from like her culture. So where is she from? She's from some country in Africa. Where is she
If I'm
from?
not mistaken, she is Swahili.
So
Let me
like,
see
but
where that.
Swahili people are like I think like Southern African people, maybe. I don't know. Like I feel like
Let's see. Oh, you can buy Swahili products.
the Swahili coast is a coastal area of East Africa, bordered by the Indian Ocean and inhabited by the Swahili people. Okay, so it's a country in Eastern Africa over there by Madagascar, but kind of in, no, I guess it's kind of in Southern Africa, kind of in the
And
middle.
yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
there's a lot of neat. We'll have to study. I'm gonna have to read up all about the Swahili people. It's cool.
Hmm, that is interesting.
I love. I can't. I can't be sure because I'm just kind of like looking on general Google images, but some of the images are very cool. I thought I would find the headdress, but I didn't find it. But it could be something. It could be something alien, or it could be something from her people. You're right. So yeah, Uhura's very. I'm glad again. Just reiterating that Uhura is like a great character, and Celia Rose Gooding is doing a great job portraying her. I think she has not only
It's
honored
interesting.
the
Like,
original character, but taken her to a new level.
I find it interesting. Like, you know, because she's lost her family, like so maybe like those masks like help to keep her like grounded and like
Mm,
rooted in like who she is and like where she came from,
that's good.
even as she is like amongst the stars.
What a crazy tragedy. Ugh, I can't even imagine. Anyways, I think it's time to give this episode a rating. I'll go first. I wanted to give this episode a 10 because, again, I was so struck by the story of the Jakaru, but I have to be fair and kind of balance it out. And I think just the Beto stuff. By the way, before I give the rating, I had earlier I'd mentioned I hope that they're done, Uhura and Beto. What was your opinion on their relationship?
He seems too immature for her.
Yeah, I
Um, I mean, hey, you know what? Like she has I mean, you know, she's seen a lot. I feel like sometimes there is a tremendous difference between people who are 25 and 21, even though there's not like that many years between them. Like you know, like sometimes people who are 25 like just have like they can just experience a lot of things in like 4 years time that like makes them seem like so much mature. But
Yeah,
he seems like a boy to
right.
me.
But
And
she's a
not
woman.
right. Dude, she's a woman, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and she needs a man. Like, that's right. Like, that's what she needs. Like,
Dude,
agree,
like I wanna
agree.
see like something happen between like Uhura and New Scotty.
I know. I would have, you know, I don't want any more romances, but I actually wouldn't be opposed to that. But then, they do have like some kind of relationship in Star Trek 5. So they eventually do get together in some way. I don't know how long it lasts or anything like that. I have to research and see if there's anything in the beta canon about it. Audience, tell us if you know the skinny on Uhura
I
and
mean, I
Scotty.
feel like I wanna catch like Scotty in the Jeffries tube with somebody.
There was Scotty had chemistry with her in the last episode, remember? Like he had a pretty good chemistry. So
He
yeah, I
did.
agree. I agree.
Mhm.
They had good
Scotty
chemistry.
and Uhura
So
in the
yeah,
Jeffries
no
tube. We're
more
like,
Beto. Uhura needs to get rid of Beto. We're both in agreement on that. And on that note, I would give this episode. I was gonna get, like I said, I really want to give it a 10 because the Jakaru storyline really fascinates me, and I really loved it. And it emotionally affected me. I cried. I cried at the end of the episode, and even at some points throughout when they revealed certain things about it. Um, but I would say that I'm gonna give this episode a 9.
oh wow. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Very high scores, dude.
It's still high because again, the overall story of the Jakaru I thought was done really well. By the way, people were complaining about Michael Burnham crying in every episode. Pike has been crying in every episode of this
Mm.
season. I don't know if you've noticed. He cries like in every episode, so but anyways, go on. What do you give it?
You know, Pike hasn't been my favorite
Season?
in this season three. Yeah. So I would give this episode a 7.5. I'm gonna add a 7.5 in the last 2 weeks. You know, I did enjoy last week's episode, but the killing of the 7,000 people just didn't hit right with
And
me, so
now
I had to go ahead
oh,
and
yeah,
drop
and
it
now a
several
similar
points.
thing. They're, like, really getting you. Yeah, it's true.
Now, like I pretty much enjoyed this episode, but then there were things that I feel strongly about. Like um I mean, you know, my cousin killed himself. My grandfather killed himself. I feel
Sorry.
really, really
Strongly.
strongly about supporting people and like making people feel like they have other options. You know, I feel like our crew spends so much time sciencing things out. You know, I don't know. I just feel like they could have found a way to tell us like a more uplifting story for me. Um, so I don't know. I just feel a way about suicide. So you know, it just this episode just didn't hit right for me in a few major ways. So I think that I would give it a 7.5. You know, I enjoyed a lot of parts of the story, but you know, I didn't really enjoy that.
That's fair. I will just offer one observation, which is, yes, that was sad what happened, but because of her sacrifice, her children will never have to go through it. And I think that's like what mothers kind of do. And that's like that's like it's not like exactly the happy ending, you know, but at least it's a good, like the Federation will now protect the Jakaru's offspring and not allow the same thing to happen to them. So that's like one good thing that came out of this is
You know
revealing
what?
the yeah.
Dude, like imperialists give people broken promises literally all the
Yeah, but
time.
that's not what
Her
we
kids will
already agreed that the Federation's
her
not an
her
imperialist.
her kids will probably be enslaved in
No.
2 weeks. She should have stayed
We need to
alive
follow
in
Star Trek
order to
writers.
protect her children. That's
Star
what a
Trek
good mother
writers.
does.
Star Trek writers, we need to find out in Starfleet Academy what is the fate of the Jakaru's children. We need to find out 900 years in the future what happened to the Jakaru's children. We demand it. Justice for the Jakaru.
Oh yeah, like nothing's gonna happen to your kids. Dude, like, you know what? Those kids are gonna be like a bio weapons like
Oh
next
my
week.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Maxon. Oh, dark, dark, dark. Well, audience, tell us what your thoughts are. Please, please, if you're in the live chat, hello, future Sohail. Hello, future Braxton, in case you're in the live chat too. And if not, just feel free to comment in the comments below what you thought of this episode. I had so much fun discussing this episode with you, Braxton. I really appreciate you coming back and filling in for Marcel, but also you're a longtime guest of this show, so it's not really a fill-in. It's more like, hey, you're just on this journey now. You're on this journey now.
Uh, uh, you know,
And on
it has
that note,
been.
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say thank you, and it's been so fun. And
It
I
has been
apologize for my
fun.
technical problems, but I'm glad I got
Oh,
back.
we roll with those punches here on Starfleet. So hail, it's quite all right. And if I must, I've got to say, like, we keep in touch, of course, but it's so much fun to do this again. So I really appreciate it. Live long and prosper, audience, and we will see you next time.